Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. I want to remind everyone to go to HughForHeritage.com and get your executive summary of the National Coronavirus Recovery Commission's final report. I'm joined now by John Malcolm. John is the vice president at the Heritage Foundation for the Institute for Constitutional Government. He's director of the Meese Center, named for my old boss at the Department of Justice years ago, and the senior legal fellow. Good morning, John. How are you?
Doing fine, Hugh. Good to be with you.
I played earlier today Senator Hawley's impassioned denunciation of the betrayal of religious conservatives. I think it's premature. My admonition to the audience is wait until Our Lady of Guadalupe is decided and then talk to me. What do you think, John?
Well, look, it was certainly disappointing. Justice Gorsuch claims to be a textualist. I think he believed he was doing textualism. I just think he did bad textualism. But you're right. There's Our Lady of Guadalupe, and there's another important religious liberty case still to be decided that may answer some of the questions that Justice Gorsuch clearly said were going to still be open, such as whether there are religious liberty exemptions, et cetera. So we'll learn more by the end of the term. I'm still cautiously optimistic that at least in those cases, Justice Gorsuch will come out on the right side.
See, I believe there's a category called freedom and federalism conservatives, and we stand vigilant on First Amendment freedoms, especially free exercise and speech, on Second Amendment freedoms, on Fifth Amendment freedoms regarding property rights, and on federalism, especially structural federalism. It's my red zone, and I do not view a statutory interpretation decision, no matter how controversial, to be in the red zone. I just don't, because 25 states already outlaw LGBTQ discrimination. There was a textualist argument, which I have read, and I'm not persuaded, but it's not without merit. It's not whole cloth. Right. And so, I think we have to make our priorities and watch those towers, and we don't know yet.
So I agree with that completely, actually. So this was not a constitutional ruling. It was a matter of statutory interpretation. And for people who are saying, oh, well, this proves that the conservative legal movement is a farce and we can't get anywhere, I would remind people that Justice Scalia, of course, joined an opinion that said that flag burning was protected by the First Amendment. And he wrote what was quite possibly, from a religious liberty perspective, the worst opinion out there, which is Employment Division versus Smith. And I don't think that anybody would say that Justice Scalia was somehow a turncoat and a failure. And so I'm not going to be so quick to condemn Justice Gorsuch either.
That's what, and I believe that Sean Trendy and others have argued that Chief Justice Roberts issued a strategic vote here so that he could assign the opinion to Justice Gorsuch, a senior member of the court. What do you make of that speculation, John?
I'm a little skeptical of that because I believe that even if Chief Justice Roberts had been among the dissenters, that in all likelihood, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg would have assigned the opinion to Justice Gorsuch. He's clearly the vote that the liberal justices wanted to keep. And if they didn't assign it to him, or if they wrote concurring opinions that strayed too far from his opinion, there was always the risk that he could say, I've changed my mind. I'm going to join the dissenters and turn that dissent into a majority opinion. So it could be. I'm not inside the court's chambers. But I think that even if the chief had been with the dissenters, it's highly likely Justice Gorsuch would have been assigned that opinion anyway.
All right, interesting. Now, there's also a theory that is in my mind that Justice Kennedy established this jurisprudence on sexual orientation for which, along with his free speech jurisprudence, he will be most remembered, and his federalism, which was pretty rigorous. This is of a piece with Obergefell, even though it's a statutory decision. Do you think there might be some lingering sense of sort of a loyalty to that line of cases that's played out here in Bostock?
Well, it certainly didn't play out with Justice Kavanaugh, who also clerked for Justice Kennedy. I don't think there's any question that Justice Gorsuch has, proudly by his lights, a libertarian streak. Nonetheless, justices are not supposed to bring their politics into their statutory interpretation. So I don't think that he was somehow giving a nod to Justice Kennedy, but I suppose it's possible.
He made this argument at oral argument, and I thought at that point that was just for the benefit of the cameras, or actually for the benefit of the litigants in doing what justices did. But he apparently does believe that sex means sexual orientation, and that to be dismissed on one day after you've appeared with your same-sex partner is inevitably a sex question Did you pause at least on that argument, John Malcolm?
Yeah, look, I paused. I mean, so essentially what he's sitting there and saying, well, a guy shows up at a funeral home wearing a dress. If it had been a woman wearing a dress, no one would have said anything. Therefore, this must be on account of sex. But, two arguments override that for me, which is one, back in 1964, that there was nobody who thought that sex included gender identity or sexual orientation as well. Sex, I believe, pretty clearly means biological sex, and women were treated the same as men. If you were a transgendered woman or a gay woman, you're treated the same as gay men and transgendered
Quick question,
men.
John. Title IX is about women in sports. It's about really getting women into sports. Do you believe this is going to have to inevitably impact Title IX, even when it's intended to impact biological women?
The words are the same. It may very well.
You broke up on me there, John.
Well, it's in there to have a fix. I do believe they do that in Title. I do believe they do that for Title IX.
Interesting. That will be controversial beyond anything anyone imagines. I'll explain why in the next hour on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Thank you, John Malcolm.